Greetings and salutations and welcome to another episode of Enthusiastic Life. I am your host, Brendan Walsh. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you so much for joining us. I'm so grateful to any and all that are tuning in to listen to our podcast. This week, my guest is our friend, Lori McColl. Lori is the founder and chief growth officer of WIM Innovations. Lori and I had a really enjoyable conversation about how she founded her business, but we spent the majority of our time talking about what it's like being a business owner, being an entrepreneur, the struggles that you face, the challenges that you face, and sometimes it's frustrations and sometimes it's just a lot of fun. And I really love Lori's perspective and what she brings, and I think you'll enjoy this conversation. So please enjoy the conversation that we had with Lori McColl.
Do you not think kids are overscheduled these days? Maybe your kids are.
Yeah, that's a really good question. Are kids overscheduled? Yes, for the most part. However, in the summer, it somewhat dictates it because otherwise, with two working spouses or partners, what are you going to do with them?
I know.
Like, they need to be overscheduled because otherwise they're going to be feral cats. And like our youngest is borderline feral cat because she doesn't have as much scheduled as the older ones. But I mean, Elizabeth is working.
Yeah.
So she's doing...
Got to start bringing them into the business.
Well, so funny you say...
Oh my God. So I have a story that...
Okay, so funny you say that.
My first job was licking envelopes at my dad's insurance company.
So I have never talked to my kids about getting into the business, ever.
Really?
Not once.
That's really disappointing.
It's kind of intentionally. If they want to find their way to it, they can find their way to it. But someone asked Elizabeth what she wanted to do. And she said, I'm thinking financial services or insurance. And I was like,
oh my God, this is like my family.
16-year-old says, I want to get into insurance. No one.
A smart kid.
Yeah.
So you're the second generation running this, right? Did your dad start it?
My dad started it.
Dad started it.
Funny story about that too, because my dad was older when he had me, right?
Okay.
And I have a brother who is a half brother who's 20 years older than I am, who is also in the business. So technically, at one point, you could say we were 3 generations in 2, because my brother is literally a boomer, and I'm a Gen X. And my dad was the silent generation. And we absolutely had people who would like say to my brother, like, oh, how cool that your son and father, like your grandfather's in the business. And he did not find that, amusing.
I love that. But like if he was born, if this was happening today, he'd be like, oh yeah, it's totally normal.
Right. So
is it your daughter or is it your,
Yeah. So my 16-year-old daughter's considering it. So we'll see. I definitely, we have some new projects that we're rolling out that I think would be great to have her get involved with this summer. But right now, she's overscheduled. She's a lifeguard and she's teaching swim lessons. So the swim lessons are like 10 a.m. to 2 or 10 a.m. to noon or something. And then she works in the afternoon. And then she's got field hockey training. I mean, they are, yes. To answer your question, they're totally overscheduled.
They're overscheduled. Huh?
But better that than on their phones.
I agree. Or sitting around.
Right.
You know.
Although we used to have to sit around, but when we sat around, we just made our own trouble.
Yeah. I don't know what we were doing. I was always outside riding my bike and doing stuff, you know. But yeah. Interesting.
Well, Lori McColl, welcome to our podcast.
Thank you. I'm so glad to be here.
Could you please introduce yourself to our many, many myriad listeners?
I love it. Just for the record, if you only have 300 followers, I believe that's micro niche and so much cooler than millions. But I'm glad to be one of your early guests.
Well, hey, if we get the millions, then we get that fat sponsorship cash. So, we'll see.
Yes, get that money. Monetize multiple revenue streams, right? Hi, my name's Lori McColl. I live on the river in Detroit. I'm originally from Canada. I grew up on a 4th generation working farm. I left Canada and came to the U.S. Because I was a really good volleyball player. So I played D1 volleyball down in Ohio. And then after I was finished school, I did grad school and then came up to Detroit. And that's how our origin story connects.
Tell me what you do now.
Pardon? I run an automation and AI agent development company. I started it 8 years ago. It's called WIM Innovation. It was, at the time, I was one of those early corporate dropouts, like before COVID. I come from a very entrepreneurial family. Whether you believe farmers are entrepreneurial, they're running multi-million-dollar businesses, hedging crops and equipment and all the different things. My dad was an entrepreneur. And I think like most of my upbringing was my parents telling me not, or my mother telling me, do not do what your father did. Do not. Go in to get a nice corporate job.
Something safe.
Something safe. She goes, your father is reckless. Those were my early memories. But, as I kind of worked through leaving home, I went to school like eight hours away from home. It was my first time away from the small town I was from. The world was really big and overwhelming. And at the time, so my undergrad was at Ohio University.
Athens, Ohio.
At the time, the number 3 party school in
Hot
the
diggity.
US. Yeah.
Bobcats, Bearcats?
Bobcats. Go Bobcats. I know, yeah. And originally I went there, not only was I was obviously playing volleyball there, but originally I went there because they were one of the top physical therapy schools. And I learned very quickly that doing a really, strong biology, chemistry degree and trying to play D1 was going to be a little bit too much for me. But in the end, I ended up kind of going through a number of degrees. I was an economics major, I was a psychology major, and then I landed in the School of Business, and that's where I found all of this is coming together.
Yeah. And what do you recall is our origin story of how we met?
Oh my gosh. So when I was in undergrad, all of the girls that I knew that were getting really good jobs were getting jobs with Accenture, PwC, all the big 3.
Sure.
Well, at the time it was the big 4. That was before Enron.
Right. R.I.P. Arthur Anderson.
R.I.P. Yeah, exactly. Honestly, that's how I started my career, with the aftermath of that. So, so our origin story started with your wife, because your wife worked at PwC in Detroit.
The great and wonderful Kelly Benedetti Walsh.
The amazing Kelly. I spent 17 years at PwC in Detroit. I went back and forth between national and global kind of practices, but I was always based here. And so originally that was our connection. Yeah. And then I think our secondary connection is because we both love sports. We're Detroit Athletic Club members, which has been a wonderful addition to my life. When I moved to Detroit, I lived up in the suburbs, like everybody used to do, Royal Oak, Troy, wherever. And then I moved downtown when downtown was really just starting to, I'd say the second wave of picking up, like 2012, 13, 14. I moved downtown and the DAC was the first thing I joined. I was still at PwC, but so I think our origin story somewhere happened between athletics and sports at the DAC and your wife.
I think that's fair.
Yeah.
So tell me, how does one go from, so you go from volleyball player and possible physical therapist to corporate gig, PwC, doing IT consulting? Yes?
It was more IT, it was IT consulting in the old days, but it was a lot of technology and process transformation.
So how does one go from that to starting a business, which you were explicitly told to never do?
Oh God,
and
never.
Tell me about that mindset shift, and tell me about what it felt like before you took that jump, right? Because I mean, I remember doing that myself. Of you've got a salary, you've got bonuses, you've got steady consistency, right? There's safety there. Mm-hmm. Tell me about that moment of, what's that moment like?
Oh wow. So one of my favorite quotes of all times is from Michael Bernard Beckwith, and his quote was, "When the pain pushes, the vision pulls."
Can you say that again?
When the pain pushes, the vision pulls. And so 17 years working with some of the top companies in the world as part of PwC. I was a second-year director, and for those that are ex-Big Three, Big Four, you know that as your middle-tier director in the consulting side, you have to start to make a decision. Do you go partner route or do you go industry route? And there was a lot of things that were happening at the time. I went through the highs and lows of consulting from when I started. It was all of the fallout of the Enron, Arthur Andersen stuff, where the government came in and said, basically, the SEC, everyone else, we need companies to be able to prove there's checks and balances to protect shareholders.
Sure.
Really? And so I really started with, looking at process automation and corporate fraud. I know, which I oddly have a weird passion for. Not actually to commit it, but
clarify the passion.
No,
right?
I'm obsessed with all these corporate fraud scenarios. I'm just oh, yeah. And
uncovering
we
them.
even have a couple big ones locally here too, where I'm I know exactly. Oh man. But anyways, so
What's to dive back into those days a little bit?
Pardon?
What's to dive? He makes you want to dive back into that a little bit and help out.
Yeah, if you look at FTX and the crypto fall down, backdoors in the IT systems that allowed them to transfer money out without anybody even knowing, but still kept all of the general ledgers in QuickBooks or whatever they were running. Who knows? But
so you decided to go out on your own.
Yeah, so I was I was kind of at that career impetus where you have to make that decision, and there was a combination of things that were really happening that, as you get higher up, when you grow up in a company, you're kind of used to a certain culture and the we as a team and, rah-rah, Kool-Aid. And then as you get up, you start to see what things are really as a leader. And what I was doing, I was kind of pigeonholed in. And what I wanted to do wasn't possible for transferring. And so long story short, I was working on a side project at our athletic club. On our technology transformation. I was just a volunteer on the committee and somehow got assigned writing the business case for the board to approve a technology transformation, which hadn't been done since 1984. The running joke was that they spent more on landscaping than they did on technology. Or flowers had a bigger budget than technology.
They are lovely.
I know they are very beautiful. So I started just working with a lot of different kind of people and companies, and we started working on that. And it all just kind of came together at the same point. I realized this was not where I was going to be long term, despite all the relationships and cool things that I'd done, that there was a path for me forward. I really wanted to explore more of the startups, and this is 2016. So this is when moving from corporate to a startup was just the two worlds just didn't understand each other.
Sure. And
didn't see the value. And this is before COVID too, right? Where a lot of people made massive transformations or massive career transitions.
Yeah. They reassessed what they wanted to do and what was important to them.
What was important to them. Exactly. And so long story short, there was some pain that I was feeling in my current practice that made it clear to me that, I just wasn't going to be able to do what I wanted to do long term. And I'd spent most of my career working on really large, big software implementations, and they were all internal, financial accounting, CRM, all that kind of stuff. And so our end user was always the internal employee. And so at the time, I had this other opportunity to really work in technology that was used by the customer. And the customer just so happened to be me, and you, right? And so it just gave me a different view on how technology all comes together. And so it was just really interesting that I could be a part of building something that I would actually be a user of.
That's cool.
And knew really in-depthly.
Yeah.
And so that's how I started. And then I did that. But at the time, I'd also been interviewing for a number of startups to see if it could be CTO, CIO. And like I said, back in that day, it was just such a jump. You were either a startup person, you were either an entrepreneur person, or you were a corporate person. And, Detroit's tech scene was really, really young at that time, really young. It's not like we were in Silicon Valley or New York or, Austin. And so, I just ended up starting, out just simply like, well, let's just see how far this gets me. And, I had saved up a lot of money. And so I had enough runway to be able to try this for a little bit. And then that just turned into the next thing, which turned into the next thing, which turned into the next thing. I will tell you the first 4 years were probably some of the hardest years I'd ever experienced. You're right.
And how so?
Oh my goodness.
If you've got people on here listening that are, that have that inkling, right? They're getting that nudge, that pain that creates a vision.
You have to wear all hats. So I think one of the biggest decisions that people have to make is, are you a solo entrepreneur where it's just you and you're kind of a consultant that runs, or consultant, or you have a thing that you do. It's just you're one person show. Or do you want to build a company? And there's no disrespect to either path. Both come with consequences,
right,
benefits, challenges. I had realized that I wanted the experience in growing and managing and building my own culture. But the challenge was all of the things you're not good at, you still have to be good at. You have to wear all of these hats. I had to be the head of HR. I had to be the CFO. I had to deliver. I had to be the head of sales. I had to I had to figure out how to market this or share this. And and I had to figure out how to manage cash flow so that I could get to the point where I could bring on an employee to help. And then how do you go through that process when you're still like delivering? Like, it was such a balance. I think that first jump and that first decision of solo entrepreneur to, I think they call it like entrepreneur, or like, anyway, solo entrepreneur to like building a company is one of the first decisions. And then the second, depending on what path you take, if you're building a company and you're bootstrapping it from like all of like, my skin was the only skin in the game,
right?
So I had to be able to sustain myself, manage savings, investments, make sure the math, and then figure out how do you bring on your first employee, your second employee, your third employee.
Yeah.
And so I'd say over the course of the last 8 years, it really took me until year 6. I had, in total over the last 8 years, I probably had 3 significant pivots. And it took 8 years to get to 7 figures. So all of this, one of the things that I would share to a lot of people is that, all these people that are making fast cash online and sharing their stories of, I built these courses, or I did this or that fast cash isn't really sustainable, And that those that you see now as like entrepreneurs that you're like, wow, like you're like an overnight success. No, they had 10, 15 years grinding.
You just saw the result of all of those years. It looked like overnight.
You dropped in at year 10.
Right.
You weren't there when they were almost evicted, where they almost lost their house, where they made the wrong hire, where they got into what they thought was their dream project contract and then never got paid.
So
I mean, like, I have been through it all.
Before we sat down, you were sharing a funny story. So we're both members of the Detroit Athletic Club, which we talk about a lot. And for those of you who don't know, the DAC is a 100-year-old club in the DAC where a lot of business owners congregate, meet. It's not just for athletics. It's a real center and hub of the city. Yeah. And in that hub is another hub called the Tap Room, right?
Yes.
Which is a lovely bar inside of it. But you were telling me a story about what happened the day your company went live.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. It was the funniest. So one of the things that I will share that we know that maybe a lot of people don't know is that Not only is the Detroit Athletic Club the #1 athletic club, I think, in North America, but it is an epicenter of entrepreneurs going back 100 years.
Sure.
It is, those people that are actually there every day are truly small business owners. And I ended up meeting a lot of mentors along the way, which included my first entrepreneur mentor. Oh my God.
And tell me about that.
Oh my goodness. Sorry, it was January 2nd, 2017.
Okay.
I was meeting some friends. They knew I was going off on my own. And I did have like a contract in place. So it wasn't like I was sitting, trying to figure out how we're going to make this work.
We're just going live.
We're going live. Yeah, we're live. I started in a co-working space downtown Detroit. I literally had spent the day making my business cards. I was so uncomfortable because for the first time ever, my day was not driven by emails coming in from everybody like, where's this? This is happening. This is burning.
Interesting, yeah.
It was completely peaceful. And that was uncomfortable. And so I was making my business cards downtown Detroit, January 2nd, 2017. And my one friend, who is a CIO, called me. He says, hey, we're having drinks in the tap room. Come join me. And I was like, I cannot get out of here faster. Like, I'm about to crawl out of my skin. I don't know what I'm doing, So I go to the tap room, and there's a whole bunch of our friends there. And they're cheering, and my friend Bob goes, hey, toast to Lori. She just started her own business. I was like, oh, God, I don't even know what I'm doing.
Right.
But there's probably like 6 or 7 of us there. And then as they were like, everybody's taking like a drink, this old man comes from the corner of the tap room. And he was, and I hate to say like old man, but he was an older gentleman wearing a suit, comes up and he cheers me and he goes, congrats, Lori, on starting your company. He goes, just so you know, you're not a real entrepreneur until you don't know how to make payroll. And Brendan, if you could have seen my eyes, I must have like looked at him like, and I remember thinking, I never want to feel that.
Right. But I guarantee.
And then 6 months later, it's so true. That moment was so bizarre. And then he just walked away.
And did you ever see him again?
No, I never saw him again.
So the ghost of the tap room.
The ghost of the tap room.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, truly like just an apparition.
Clearly an apparition.
But as any business owner will tell you,
God.
Like that feeling is, yeah.
And,
it's real.
It's real, and everybody has been through it. And I think one of the biggest lessons that I've learned running at least my own company and bootstrapping it is that what you're going through, most have gone through. There is no shame in the experiences that you're going through, the mishaps you've made, the business partners that broke up,
right.
The cash flow that got screwed up, the hire that you made that was wrong. It's all part of the journey. And that's when I said earlier on, when the pain pushes, the vision pulled. And every time I felt like in my journey of 8 years, it wasn't until the 7th year that we actually like hit it.
Yeah.
Like we hit 7, it took 7 years to hit the big one. And then the story is very funny. Through budget cuts, we lost everything again. We start back. But through this process, and I'm going to say there's many moments where I was like, I quit. There's many moments where I had to go get a side gig. Actually, I went back into the PwC, worked as a subcontractor as like 2 steps below what I left as. The moment I realized that that whatever it takes, I will do, and that if I'm in a problem, if I'm in an issue, it's not because I'm a bad entrepreneur. It's because this is what entrepreneurship is.
Right.
And it's interesting because I feel like, especially in today's social media world, right, which is such a cliche, like, oh, in today's social media driven world, but I feel like you see the sunshine and roses of people's businesses.
Yeah.
But I think and I think you experience this with Entrepreneurs Organization. I experience this with Vistage, right? Where you're sitting down at a table with peers and realize everyone's going through the same slog, the same stresses, the same worries, right? And to have a group of people that can share those experiences where it's not, hey, look at this big success that we had of like, here are the real issues that we're facing, right? Or here are the things that we need to be thinking about going forward.
Yeah.
Where it's the real life of a business owner and entrepreneur is not, the social media posts. It's it's cash flow. It's worrying about payroll. It's taking care of your employees. It's it's all of the in between stuff that.
Absolutely.
In addition to the wins.
Well, absolutely. And then let's just assume at one certain level, either let's just say you've mastered it at the 12 employee level, and now you get this big opportunity or this big, policy or this big contract or this big investment. And now you're ramping up to the 50 to 100. One of my friends who was an incredible entrepreneur here, he told me the zeros might get bigger, but the problems are still the same. Meaning that your $1 million problems will be your $100 million problems.
Yeah.
They'll be the same. The magnitude will just be.
Sure. Yeah.
The magnitude and the risk and the impact will just be more significant, Yeah. And yeah, so it's like you might master it at one level and be cruising along, and then you've got an opportunity to scale or take a jump or make a pivot or perhaps like everything that, especially in this economic situation right now, like how many business owners were prepared for tariff wars coming out of nowhere?
Right.
Supply chain shortages, like you could be cruising along and then there's always something that comes up. And I think it's truly about the journey of confidence. Like, can you sit with $50 in your bank account and still have faith that the new direction or that, whatever needs to happen will happen?
And I think
can you sleep at night?
Yeah.
With just $50 in your bank account?
And it takes me back to something that your mom said.
Yeah.
Right?
Don't ever do this.
No, but that your dad was reckless, right? However, to be an entrepreneur, you need to be a little bit reckless, right? In a responsible way.
Yeah.
But you need to have that confidence and belief, knowing that it's going to work.
Well, absolutely. And my mom's definition of my father being reckless was those are two opposite sides. My mom needed stability, and my dad needed deals and energy and freedom.
Sure.
Part of the recklessness when I was little was that my dad, just like you, started an insurance company. We grew up on a fourth generation working farm, but he always admitted his father and him were awful farmers. And so
know thyself.
Know thyself. I remember running around with Dad all over the place, fixing combines on the back of hay bales, like out picking huckleberry weeds with my grandfather. But, he was working as a farmer and working the farm, trying to carry things on and starting his insurance company, which started as a life insurance company. And it wasn't happening. And he almost lost the farm, which my guess is they were probably behind on the mortgage. And he had to call my dad or my grandpa up to say, hey, listen, I think I'm going to lose the farm. And let's just say back in those days, there wasn't a lot of love for that. He said, well, you better figure it out.
Right.
And he pivoted and he figured it out all on his own. And so my mom considers that to be, and again, it's about financial stability. I think the number one thing you need to understand as an entrepreneur is, can I handle the financial instability?
Right.
Can I still sleep if I'm $1 million in debt? Can I still sleep when payroll is due and, customers haven't paid on time?
Yeah. So I'm going to shift as we're running out of time. And one question I like to ask everybody is, because as a business owner, we have lots of highs and lows. And it's also just a kind of crazy time in the world right now.
Yeah.
So Lori McColl, what is bringing you joy right now?
Oh my goodness. There's things that are bringing me joy.
I love that.
No, I know. What's really bringing me joy, so we have made a number of significant pivots in the business over the last year. And it's funny because we've started a podcast like sharing the journey of the messy middle, the chaos before clarity. I now have a COO or an integrator. If any of our listeners are EOS people, I finally have an integrator to help, navigate strategic ideas, visions, the team. We've got an entirely new set of solutions and services. We've niched down, and I'm just really loving where we are right now. We have a couple incredible clients that we're working with that are really cool in the state. We're starting to do more creative work on the storytelling side of what we do. Historically, we'd always been relationship driven. We'd done really no marketing. We were kind of like, we're boutique. Like we'll build off of relationships and case studies. So the business is bringing me a lot of joy right now, which is the first time in a while. And we're on the clock, like we're trying to pivot, and we've got 5 months of cash flow right now. But I'm like, 5 months of cash flow is way better than 30 days. That's what I lived for many years. That's bringing me joy. And I've started to just share more of the things that I've learned. I live on the river. I bike into work. That brings me so much joy. So yeah, there's a lot of things that are bringing me joy.
Nice. On our world famous Detroit riverfront.
I love our riverfront.
It's pretty great.
Oh my God, it's magical.
Well, Lori, thank you so much for joining us.
Brennan.
Thank you for this conversation.
Thank
you for your honesty and vulnerability. We need more of that in the business world, of people knowing the reality of what it's like. So thank you for that.
Oh yeah, no, I think there's just. I think if more people knew how hard it was, they maybe wouldn't beat themselves up so much. And if more people knew how hard it was, they maybe would be a little bit more grateful for where they are. I think there's a place for everybody here. And, I'd personally love to see a lot more entrepreneurs, because I think there's a lot of problems that could be solved. And honestly, small businesses are the engine of this country. They're often forgotten. But they truly are the ones that make our communities better, take care of their people, come up with really cool ideas and things. And so, I mean, you're one of my favorites, Brendan. So it's my pleasure to be here, and hopefully to share a little bit of, a little bit with your audience.
This is great. Thank you.
Love it.
I want to thank my friend Lori McColl for joining us here in the office for an enthusiastic life conversation. I hope you enjoyed that as much as I did. Lori is a hoot, and I just love spending time with her, and was so happy to be able to share that with all of you. If you did enjoy our conversation, please consider giving us a share and letting your friends know about the Enthusiastic Life podcast. Click share, click like, leave a rating or a comment. It'll help us be findable for those of you out there who are looking for great new podcasts to listen to. And thank you so much for listening. I'm really grateful that we have any audience at all. So thank you so much for joining us, and we will look forward to having you back here again very soon. Take care, everybody.